Good morning, my name is Benedict Ley. I'm going to give you a brief introduction into data entry for the Across study in Laos. Thank you very much for your time. I will try and keep it as brief as possible. The aim of this presentation is to give you an understanding of how to transfer data that have been collected on paper in the CRF into an electronic version. We are using Epidata version 3.1 for this purpose. This is a Danish product that is freeware and you can download it from the net. Otherwise, I will have provided you with a zip folder that contains everything you need. Within that zip folder, you will find you need to unzip this folder and store the entire content in a separate designated folder from where you can operate. Once you've done that, all you really have to do is you need to click on the file that is called Epidata, which is the actual program, which then pops up. Next, you click on number 4, Enter Data, and a window pops up. And if this is not already the case, you need to select your designated folder again, and then click on the only file that's in there, which is in this case called Across, and open this. The first thing that you see is that a window pops up that tells you to please enter all data from one participant in one go. If you are unsure about what options you have for enter into a specific field, you can always press F9, and I will give you some details and some examples of this in a second. As you can see, Epidata reflects the paper form in terms of all of the variable names and a brief explanation. You can see that some of the fields in Epidata are actually already pre-filled and you can't change them anymore. This is for one, the study name, which is abbreviated as ACS. And in your case, you are doing a hospital-based survey. Hence, this is already pre-filled as a number 2. Next, you need to enter the participant ID. For Laos, all participants will have a study ID that starts with a 7 and is then followed by 3 digits. And I would like to here give you a first example of how Epidata can help you in data entry. Assuming that rather than a 7, you used a 6 and you are planning to enter patient number 999, you would enter 6999. Epidata will see that this is a wrong entry and will point this out to you, and you can't actually proceed unless you correct this. So let's correct this now and say, very well, in this case we would like to enter patient 7999, and I'm sorry, in this case we will have to enter 7998, and this is acceptable. Next, you need to enter the subject initials, and this can be any free text, and the date of visit. Now let's assume that our patient visited on the 15th of August, and then again we're making a mistake. We're not saying 2020 but 1920. Kindly also note here that you just really need to enter the numbers, nothing more. Then Epidata will tell you, I don't think this is correct. You can only enter visit dates between the 1st of May of 2020 to the 1st of December of 2021. So you go click on OK and you correct your entry 2020. Here we go. In general, some fields will require a yes/no reply. One is always a yes and no is always coded by a 0. So in this case, the question would be, has the patient had fever in the last 48 hours? And we would say no, a 0. And you can see this is also written out here next to the field. Is the patient above 1 year of age? Let's again assume we're making a typo and we enter a 0 again. Then Epidata will say, look, this actually breaches the inclusion criteria. Your patient should be at least 1 year of age. You click on OK, you go back and you correct this. And the same also applies to consent. We assume no consent was given. Epidata will tell you, this is really not great. Consent should have been provided. Please go back and check again and we will correct this. Now, the date of birth. Let's assume our patient was born on the 15th of August, and then we make a mistake and we say 1850. Again, Epidata does not like that and will tell you, look, this patient is too old to be realistic. We need to take something else. Let's assume our patient is indeed very old. He was born in 1910. Two things happen. First of all, Epidata calculates the age in years automatically based on the date of enrollment that you entered up here. In this case, our patient would be 110 years old, which is quite spectacular. And indeed, Epidata did check that and says that your participant is very old. Please confirm that again. However, it will let you proceed. Next, we want to know whether our patient is a man or a female. Males are always coded with 1, females with 2. Let's assume we're dealing with a lady here. Is this lady a resident of the catchment area? And let's in this case assume yes, a 1. In this case, Epidata automatically leaves out fields that can be left blank. The place of birth again would be free text. The ethnicity. Now, the ethnicity is adapted to the local setting. However, you may not be aware how these are coded. What you can do in these cases is put your cursor in there and then press F9. And a window will pop up that tells you 1 stands for Makong, 2 for tree, 3 for Ta or Yi, 4 for Laolum, 5 for Futai, and 9 if nothing was recorded. You have two options in this case. Either you click directly on the correct answer here, or you go back and you say, no, I would like to change this to Laolum. This really works for all multiple choice questions. Now, to give you an example, did the patient travel in the last 4 weeks? If you are unsure, just put the cursor there, press F9, and you will see 0 is no, 1 is yes, and 9 is missing. Which brings me to the next point. In most cases, we would highly appreciate if no data has been collected on the CRF and you can't go back and sort of identify the missing data and still collect that. Please always enter a 99 or a 999 for us to understand that you tried to complete, that the field has not been complete, the data is really missing, and you just did not overlook this field. So let's say we just don't know. This data was not collected. Next, we want to look at the auxiliary temperature in degrees Celsius, and we assume that the patient was, it says 32 degrees. This is not compatible with life, and Epidata will not let you continue. You need to correct this to 35 degrees Celsius, for example. Did the patient have a history of fever in the last 30 days? We assume no. Of malaria in the last 6 months? Again, we say no. And as you can see, Epidata automatically skips the next couple of fields because these would relate if the patient had had malaria. Now let's get to weight. Let's assume our female was 20 kilos at a body height of 150 centimeters. This is extremely underweight, and Epidata detects that and points this out to you. It will let you continue. In this case, it actually says this lady is almost dead. It will let you continue, but there is this comment. So let's assume, okay, indeed we did make a mistake. In fact, the lady, oops, no, sorry. The lady is not 500 kilos, but 50 kilos. And Epidata is happy with that. In children up to the age of 5 years, the mid-upper arm circumference in millimeters is also being recorded. However, since our lady is 101 years old, this does not apply, and Epidata leaves this blank right away. The presumptive diagnosis is free text. You can enter whatever you want to. And then we want to know if severity criteria, according to WHO definitions, were present. In this case, we say no again. As you can see, the blood sample collected is already pre-filled. In some sites, we might alternatively be collecting venous or capillary blood. In Laos, we are only collecting capillary blood, and hence this is already pre-filled. Now, the time of sample collection is collected in the 24-hour format. So, for example, 4 o'clock in the afternoon would be 1600 hours, and you need to enter this accordingly. We are also interested to understand the number of dried blood spots that were collected, and we assume that that was a total of 5. We are interested to understand how long the delay was between sample collection and rapid diagnostic testing. So we need to enter the date when the point of care test was done. Now let's assume that we accidentally enter a date before the date of enrollment. Epidata will realize that and say the date of the point of care testing must be on the same day or after enrollment, but never before. Next we say, oops, yes, you're right. And I will correct this now. Please keep in mind that we had put an enrollment date of the 15th of August 2020, and testing would be more than 2 weeks later. And again, Epidata says that is really not ideal and quite unlikely. Can you please check? In fact, in this case, it says this is more than a week after patient enrollment. Kindly check this again. So we will correct this and say this was done on the 16th. And again, we need to put down the time when this was done, and let's assume this was at 5 o'clock in the morning. This laboratory starts very early. Next, we want to know the result of the malaria RDT. If you click F9, you can see that 0 is negative, 1 is PF, 2 is PV, 3 is a mixed infection, 4 means that the test was invalid, 5 the test was not done, and 9 the test there was no data entered and this cannot be changed anymore. So let's assume our patient had a PF infection. I'm sorry for that. We also want to know the result of the ultrasensitive RDT. And we again check what are our possible answers, and this is negative, positive, or invalid. And we will again say positive. And then we want to know the result of the G6PD RDT, and this can be normal, deficient, or invalid. And we will say this was normal. We also want to know the hemoglobin value that was measured. And again, this is range checked, so you can't enter 1, for example. Epidata will tell you no, this is unlikely. HB levels are usually between 2 to 25 gram per deciliter. In this case, we will take something quite spectacular. We would say 15 gram per deciliter. If this had not been measured, kindly enter 99. Next, we want to know the quality of the slide for the malaria microscopy. If you press F9, you can see your different options, and these could be good, poor, or missing. Let's assume this quality of the slide was good. We want to know the species. Again, press F9 if you're unsure. Here we have all different kinds of combinations. We again say 1. Kindly note that in this case, if this was a PV infection here by microscopy, it would not detect the discrepancy to the RDT. This was observed on thick film, for example. The asexual parasite count was 125 parasites per 5,000 red blood cells. The exact parasite count is left out in this case. There were gametocytes present, and there were also schizons present. Now, once you've entered all of this, the Epidata automatically asks you whether you want to record your entry, and you click on yes, and you're done. The form is blank again, and you can enter the second patient. Now, the last thing I would like to show you is, let's assume you realize you've made a mistake and you would like to go back to that patient. You just enter the same number again. And it says, this patient has already been entered, would you like to go back? And we say yes. And then we realize that the initials, for example, were wrong and there should be ABC instead. And then go through everything again. And you say, okay, and you've changed this successfully. I would also like to show you one last thing. Within the folder, you can also find the individual files. However, I would kindly ask you not to open these. Always open the file only by starting the application, the Epidata application, and going from there. If you change any of these files, you may actually compromise the way Epidata works, and it's either not going to work anymore at all, rendering all of the data that has been entered so far lost, or it may enter erroneous data. It might behave irrationally. The last thing I would like to show you is if you want to export data so that you can, for example, share them with others or have a look at them. The easiest is to open Epidata and click on Export Data. You want to export them to Excel. You click on your data file, you click on Open. I'm sorry, you need to make sure that it's not being used by a different user. Here we go. Now you say export data, you export them to Excel. All you do here is you really don't change anything, you just click on OK. And your data have been exported, and they will have been exported to the same file where everything else is stored as an Excel form. You can see that here. And you can send these Excel forms directly to me. Thank you very much for your attention and very best regards. Please don't hesitate to call me. Epidata also goes along with an SOP that you can always look at. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.